Hey guys, it's Gabby. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do aura ombre nails using eyeshadow. This has been a trend for a bit now, but I'm just now getting a hang of the technique, so I'm going to show you things that didn't work for me and also things that did. So everything I'm using is from Sally Beauty. I will have it linked down below for you guys. And this is the eyeshadow I'll be using. It's this Cokie neutral palette, and I started off with a blushy pink gel base. So usually when I see this technique, people start off by applying their gel color and then applying a matte top coat over that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm applying the gelish matte top coat over my entire nail and then curing it underneath my lamp. I don't really know the reasoning behind the matte top coat, but it seemed right. And then for the tools, I've seen this done with a small little eyeshadow brush, makeup brush, and then also an eyeshadow applicator. So I'm going to be using both because I kind of wanted to see which one I liked best. And I decided to start with the little sponge eyeshadow applicator, and I'm pretty much just dipping that right into the eyeshadow and patting / rubbing that onto my nail. So as you can see, there was a little bit of color starting to show up here. It is light though, and I felt like as I kept rubbing the color on, it just wasn't sticking how I would want it to stick, you know? The color just wasn't building up. I even tried to kind of push and pat the pigment in. That I don't know what the logic was there. So instead, I'm re-dipping my eyeshadow applicator, and this time I'm just pushing a lot harder to see if I can kind of force it to go on. And it did give me some color on my nail, but it was like a weird little dark mark. And it looked so bad. I don't know. This was not the look I was going for. So at this point, I'm just going to grab some rubbing alcohol and start over because clearly that was not working. So I was like, let's switch to the brush. This must be easy because every time I see these videos, it looks so effortless. So did the same thing, dipped my brush in. And as you can see, the pigment just wasn't sticking. Like it was rubbing around, so I kept getting more. That did not help. I even tried switching colors. I was struggling at this point. But then I remembered I have this top coat. It's the ASP top coat, and it has a sticky residue. So there's no wipe where it's fully smooth, and then there's top coats like this. I was hoping that this would help the eyeshadow to stick because I didn't know if it was the top coat or the eyeshadow at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that to my entire nail and then cure it underneath my lamp. I'm going to be using the brush again, and to clean it off, I'm just taking a makeup sponge and wiping it on there so I can switch the color. Same process here, doing a few taps into the eyeshadow and then rubbing it on my nail. And look at that, you guys. Right away, the pigment was on there. That was just a few taps. This is real time, not sped up or anything. And it was so easy to do because I was like, I don't understand when things look so easy and then you can't get it. It is the most frustrating thing. That's also why I love doing videos like this, so you guys can learn from me learning. But like I said, really easy process. You do need to seal this in because if not, it's just going to wash off with water. So once you're done, you can go ahead and apply a top coat. It doesn't matter if it's no wipe, whatever you have, it's fine. And then cure your nails underneath your lamp. Overall, I was happy with this one because I finally got the color to show up, but I wanted to see if I could get the ombre effect smoother. So for the next example, I'm doing the same thing. I applied the same base color, the ASP top coat, and this time I'm using the eyeshadow applicator. And what I realized, when you use the eyeshadow applicator, you can kind of smear out the color. So as you can see, I just did the color in the middle, and then I'm going to flip it over and then kind of smear it out to fade it out. I hope this makes sense, but you can kind of smudge it around. You know what I mean? You see how that got lighter and it gives you more of that ombre effect? Because in my head, I was like, okay, I could do a sheer background and then go back in the center and add more pigment. I hope you guys are following this because it makes sense in my head. And this method seemed to work well. So I will say, as of now, I prefer to use the eyeshadow applicator instead of a brush because you just have more control. And I like the fact that you can flip it over and use the empty side to kind of wipe away or smear out certain areas. Ultimately, though, it just depends what look you're going for, what colors you're using, personal preference, things like that. But I was happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and end with the top coat. And I feel like that looks so good. I really like this one. I like that one. For the next example, I wanted to try out just a classic ombre nail. I'm switching colors, but sticking with that same eyeshadow applicator. And this time I really want to try to play around with how I could fade the colors to create that ombre. So I'm basically covering about 3/4 of my nail with very little smear of eyeshadow pigment. So just barely putting some on the eyeshadow applicator and then smearing it on my nail to get that light orange. And then I'm going to add a little bit more pigment and pretty much, I would say half of the nail, adding more pigment. You guys see what I'm trying to do here? I'm basically darkening the color as I go towards the tip free edge of my nail to create that ombre effect. So once I do kind of that middle area, I'm going to dip it again, and this time I'm really packing the color on the very tip of my nail, and I think this seemed to work pretty well. Actually, yeah, looking back, that looks pretty good, not gonna lie. But I will say the next method, I think I like a little bit better. So I pretty much did the opposite thing. So instead of starting with the thin layer, I'm gonna start with a very packed on layer of eyeshadow and then drag it down my nail towards my cuticles. So same idea, opposite method. Sometimes you just have to play around with it to see which method you prefer. And I wanna say this second method is easier to do, but either way, you can really get a nice ombre using eyeshadow. I'm kind of mind blown about this. Definitely want to keep using this technique more to get better at it. Something else you may want to do is use a base color like I am doing here, because if you use a base color, it'll make the eyeshadow pop more. You can still do it over your bare nail like I did, but either way, make sure you're applying that sticky top coat before you apply the eyeshadow. It makes this so much better. And again, make sure you seal in that eyeshadow with a top coat, but that's pretty much it. Like I said, I do want to keep playing around with this technique and see more things that do work and things that don't, but I hope this helps to at least get you started, especially for beginners, so you know how to do the basics. Thank you to Sally Beauty for working with me on this video, and I will talk to you in my next one. Bye!